So, how is everyone? I hope you're all well. It's Monday. It's Monday, and for some, Mondays suck. They absolutely suck. But me, I love Mondays. And we're going to get straight into the meat and potato because there's a lot of stuff going on. And I know some people, I see a video crop up and it's got Brian Koberger in the thumbnail. And, you know, we're talking about this case again. They're like, fuck me, can't you talk about something else? And at the end of the day, we will talk about this case as much as there is information to put out there. And I'll tell you for why. Because this whole case stinks. It stinks like a newborn's nappy. That's what this case does. And some people can literally sit there and they can be like, look, this is done. This is done. You're poking a bear that you don't need to be poking. They've got the guy and we've just got to go through due process and that's it. They're going to come out and they're going to be able to show us exactly what happened and beyond a reasonable doubt prove that the person who did this was Brian Koberger and he'd done it on his own. Now I put it to you, and I will make this damn clear because some people struggle to understand. Now I do believe that Brian Koberger was involved in this. I do. I believe that he had connections to 1122 King Road and that he was indeed in Moscow, Idaho, both potentially on the night that this happened and the following day. But I do not believe for 1 second that this guy did this crime on his own. He just one night decided, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to head over to Moscow, Idaho. I'm going to go into this house. I'm going to walk into a house that is renowned for being a party house. Hope that I don't walk into a house with 20 people in it and I'm going to unalive a bunch of people in there. I don't believe it. I don't believe it 1 second. Just think and give me a logical explanation, right? I want you to answer this question. Knowing what we know about 1122 King Road, the fact that they did consistently have parties, there was consistently multiple people in there, and even situations where you would find other people in the house and not necessarily even the people that lived there who sadly lost their life, how would this person go over to this house and do what he did without prior knowledge of who would be in that house? And how would he have got that prior knowledge? How would he have been able to know who would be in there? And if indeed this was a targeted attack, how would he know that who he was targeting was actually in there? And pair that with the amount of cars that were outside that property, the fact that this was a night when people were out and about, they were on the piss, there was a fucking food delivery to the house as well. How and why would this person have walked into this house and done this crime in the manner which is the general narrative that's being pushed? Does that even make sense? And look, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen that way. I'm not saying that it couldn't. What I'm personally thinking is that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that someone would have walked into this house knowing full well that they could have walked into a shitstorm just for the sheer hell of it. Because what? They had a darkness brewing inside of them. A straw that broke the camel's back, got upset through a message on Instagram or Snapchat. I just can't at this point buy it because there's not enough information to support that. But what there is enough information to support is that this case fucking stinks and it ain't being dealt with correctly. Now, in the video link to, no, I'll get that right, in the description of this video, there is 2 links. One to the Drunk Turkey Show. Now, if you're not aware who the Drunk Turkey Show is, this is a channel that's getting some people who are coming on. Now, I believe his name is Daniel, who is the host of that show. He's a slightly less cool version than me. He wears a hat. He's got sunglasses, but the reason I can't give him optimum coolness is because he wears sunglasses inside. But so he loses a couple of points. But what he's fantastic at is getting people to come on his channel, speaking to people and vetting them to make sure that they are indeed who they say they are. So there's a link to his video. It's not long, 18 minutes. So I'm going to set the stage, set the lights, set the chairs, get you all nice and comfortable, and you can head over there, say hello, watch the video, and strap yourselves in, because that's a bit mental. And then we've got Jules of All Trades as well, who goes over Kim. And if you don't know who Kim is, Kim's one of the mums of one of the girls, and I'm going to touch on that briefly. And she, again, breaks it down. I'm setting the stage, getting you comfortable, so on and so forth. But I know some people like a more punchy, get to the point, which I'm struggling to do at this point. So shall we get into the meat and potatoes? And to keep all you other people happy who request this, how you doing? And what else? What is the other one? Well, hello there. So I think I've covered all bases, and it's Monday. I'm spoiling you. So look, what's going on? So we are hearing multiple stories at the moment that proves that this case is not being handled right. Now, Daniel has got this guy on his show, or a statement, a discussion with this guy who he is calling Dave. Now, I love the name Dave. If I don't know someone's name, they're Dave. And look, this Dave has basically given some information regarding 1122 King Road. The fact that one of the most important things is that it seems that he lives in a position where he can overlook 1122 King Road. He can see the property, stare straight at it, and be able to tell you everything about it. But was never been approached by Moscow Police Department or anyone. No one has ever gone to him and asked him to offer any insight into what he can, what he can't, what he did, what he didn't see. And when we are led to believe by the official documentation that this area was canvassed thoroughly, and they've spoken to this, that and the other, and then you've got someone who completely overlooks this place and was never spoken to, you have to ask the question, how well did Moscow PD really canvass that area? And an even bigger question is, why didn't they do that job to the absolute fullest capacity? Why did they not make sure that they had indeed spoken to everyone? Or was it that they had a method by which they were going to complete this and they didn't need to speak to other people because ultimately it didn't matter? So I'm not going to go into all of the details of what he says because it would take away from Daniel and his channel what that information is. And, you know, I don't want to do that. I'm not into that. But I do want to draw your attention to the fact that, look, there is some information about what was going on that night. There was a situation on the field that is a stone throw away from 1122 King Road, and some things that were seen. It is a potential that Brian Kohberger was seen by an individual the following day. And why would Brian Kohberger be there? Why would he be there? And that's where this all comes in. And this kind of ties in the video that Jules of All Trades does around Kim and her timeline. Again, Kim is the mum of one of the girls who is friends with this, you know, involved in all of this stuff. And there's some people who... There's two camps. Some people who think that Kim is completely nuts, and some people who said, you know what, there's some credibility to what she is saying. Now, I'm on the fence, I must say, I'm on the fence, but as more people start to trickle through and other pieces of information become available, it does then make her look more credible. And look, she's mixing in some things about what she's been told by her daughter to what she's kind of, as a mum, perhaps gauged from what she's been told. You know, for those of you who are parents like myself, you can kind of see where she's doing that. Do you know what I mean? If we're told a story by one of our girls, especially because they're older, you can kind of take some of what they say and extrapolate on that and understand that they're perhaps not giving us the full story, but where they perhaps got that information from and add to it. Now, it would appear that what Kim is saying is that a lot of these kids around this area, they knew about these murders hours before law enforcement were called. So I know we go on and we ramble about this 8 hours quite often, and there's some people who are like saying, this frozen shock state. The survivors, they went through the ring, and they need to be left alone. You've got to understand, PTSD has even been brought into it, so on and so forth. But look, at the end of the day, multiple people knew. It would appear multiple people knew that there was something going on. And even if you want to say, in accordance with the Kim timeline, that pretty much everybody in that circle of people and the peripheral knew by, say, 10 o'clock, there's still around 2 hours where law enforcement were not called. And it would appear that Brian Kohberger was part of this rumbling of people who were called in around this house. Now, could it be that Brian Kohberger was part of, and I've said this before, a bigger picture, something else that was going on? Now, we have touched on briefly the fact that there was rumblings about something being said. The girls had turned around and said, a conversation with Adam, and it was about what had been said to someone, and the comeback from that was they're going to get you. And some people have poo-pooed that, and I've said this again, exactly the same in another video. How important is that piece of information when you pair it with the fact that there was then 4 people who lost their lives later on? How important is that when you then find out that multiple people knew about what was going on around this place hours before 911 were called? And not just the survivors, who some people can turn around and say they were asleep, they didn't wake up, they were passed out drunk, they had AirPods in, that's why they didn't fucking hear anything. I get all what you're trying to do and you're trying to say, but they were awake and they did reach out to people, and other people knew, and it would appear that that happened before 10 a.m. And this is just stuff that, people can stick their head in the sand and say, no, I don't believe it, that didn't happen, they're talking shit. But why is it that all of these people are coming forward and they're speaking what they know, like they talk of group texts that they received, part of the sororities and fraternities that had knowledge of this hours before 911. And you guys who want to just solely convict Brian Kohberger as like this soul killer, you can't accept that. But you will accept that the car that law enforcement are pushing is definitely Brian Kohberger's. You'll accept that this storage unit that he's got has some mysterious and macabre background to it. The shower curtain has been removed because of some nefarious intent. But you can't accept that there was a load of kids who knew about what was going on at 1122 King Road hours before 911 were called. And now we're starting to hear these other little stories. And are you going to rubbish them? But I have a question. I have a question about all of the not the survivors, the families of the lost. What are you doing with this information? How do you truly feel about what is coming out? Because I know some of them are going to be watching social media and they're going to be looking at it because they want to see what's happening. Now, are all of the families genuinely happy with how this is going? They're willing to accept that the guy has been got who did it. There was nothing else in the background that needed to be known because he'd done it with no connection to anyone else. But then with all these little pieces of information that's coming out surrounding potentially that many people knew that your children had been slain hours before 911 were called, and 911 and the law enforcement involved in this have not been doing their jobs to the best of their ability. Well, I say best of their ability. Maybe they did do it to the best of their ability, but it would appear that they weren't canvassing houses that directly overlooked 1122 King Road. It would appear that there's a lot going on around this case that is being ignored by people, and it's being ignored because it doesn't fit in when you start looking at it to what the main narrative is. But just because it doesn't fit with the main narrative, is it fair to ignore it? Is it fair to just consider it rubbish and lies? When does it get to a point where when a story looks to be going off the main path that you have to take notice? Or are you just going to be one of them people who just accepts what you're told and get on with your life. Because if these were my children and this information was coming out, I would be doing my absolute most to find out what the fuck is going on. Because let's not forget, the families are not gagged. Now, some people think that they were, but they're not. The gag order does not reach out to the families themselves. The families can speak if they so wish. Let me know what you think. Go and check out them 2 videos and come and let me know in the comments what you think of the whole shitstorm. Because this is not as it seems. Catch you all in the next one.